Hey friends, it's Nicole here today with a couple of cards featuring the Hero Arts My Monthly Hero April 2019 main kit and a few of the add-ons. I've got two cards to share with you today and they are both completely different, but I love both of them. The Venetian Neighborhood Cling and also some mini messages are add-ons for the month. What I love about the Venetian Cling is that it goes with the previously released Peekaboo Fancy Die. So if you have the mail jumble or the presents background and you love being able to create those little windows, I know I have created cards with those in the past. You can catch those on my YouTube channel or my blog. I'll link to that at the end of this video as well. The cards I have videos for. This is incredible. What I really suggest is the background cling is a little bit bigger than the die. So I have started with a half sheet of 8.5 by 11 cardstock, and I stamped it not really in the upper corner, but more just kind of out there in the center of this half sheet of white cardstock. This is Nina Smooth White cardstock, 110-pound weight. And the reason is this gives me a little room to play. This gives me room to play with my die. I want to make sure that I have this lined up correctly. I don't think this is quite right. I think I need to flip it around. In fact, I know I do. But this gives me a little bit of room because the image is bigger. You do not have to use it with this Peekaboo die. It would be an incredible card front all on its own. This is definitely going to be a color heavy project for me. You could ink this. You don't have to color all the little individual pieces if you don't want to. This could just serve as a background element. You could stamp it on colorful cardstock. There's so many things you can do. I kind of went extra and went crazy today because I love this background so much and I wanted to show you the potential that I went ahead and colored this whole thing. I die cut it first, as I mentioned, because this shows me exactly the surface area that I have to work with. So I didn't want to color anything extra. I didn't want to miss coloring anything. So I stamped it with intense black ink on smooth white cardstock, and then I die cut it with the Peekaboo Fancy Die, and now I am ready to start coloring in with Copic markers. You could color with colored pencils, your choice of markers. I would say if you stamped this on Bristol Smooth cardstock, color it with Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. You could watercolor. There are so many options. You could do all the things. I went with Copic markers. I'm going to say that that's probably a little more labor intensive than some of the other options, but maybe not as much as some others. It really just depends on your level of what you want to blend. I kind of did a whole surface area with E30, and then I'm going to blend E23 and E31 all over this building. What you have here is a building, and it looks like there's vines on it, and there's tons of windows, shutters, balconies. There's the clothesline that goes across several of the windows, and then down in that bottom left corner, it looks like the little stairwell. So like you're walking up into this building or apartment or whatever you want to call it. I didn't flip my windows yet. They're a little easier to color flat. You do not have to use them as such. I wouldn't probably die cut it if I wasn't going to use the windows. You could just trim this down to A2 sized if you wanted to. But these are a really fun interactive element. And what I love is the little mini messages for the month, the add-on for the month. These are made to fit perfectly in these windows. Not only this Venetian Neighborhood Cling, consider using this with your mail jumble. I mean, these sentiments will work with anything. I love all of the sentiments in this little stamp set. I was wanting something like this to work with the Peekaboo window, so I'm really, really excited about this little greeting stamp set, and we will kind of get to that in a little bit. Now, after I have blended my background, I did take my E23 and I'm kind of drawing in bricks, if you will. It's very scattered. I'm just using the tip of my marker to make little lines. I'm not doing anything special. I'm not drawing a certain shape. I just wanted to give the outside of my building some texture. And I want to make sure I take a good look back, kind of step back from this, make sure that I filled in the entire building. And then I'm going to start taking a green marker and filling in the vine in the top left corner. What I found worked well for me, because this is a lot of little windows, I didn't want to miss anything. There is so much detail. I'm going to zoom in here so you can see it a little bit better. There is so much detail that I found that if I worked window by window, I didn't miss anything. I went window by window, kind of, and row by row from top to bottom until I got to that bottom row or two. And then I really just kind of, everything that was windows I colored, everything that was shutters or the window casing I colored. So any greenery I colored all at once. But otherwise, I went window by window, and that was very purposeful because I have found that sometimes I miss things if I don't, and I wanted to be super careful. I went with a very specific color theme. I definitely drew from the main kit and the cardstocks in the main kit this month with my Copic marker color choices. So we're going to have blues and dark red flower pots. We've got greenery in anything that shows greenery. I'm using kind of some more mossy colored green. We're going to have little touches of gray-ish black with wrought iron railings throughout this design. And I'm also going to use some like deep yellow reds for oranges and yellows, and even a little red violet for my purple. For the windows, I'm super purposeful with those as well. We're using BG 70 and 72. So BG 70, very, very light, lots of colorless blender in this one. We're going to color that over the window and then draw some little lines at a diagonal with BG 72 to give them that little touch of hopefully reflection. Now I did skip down to the clothesline just to color in the shirt. I don't know why I did that. I think I was anxious to see the clothesline because I think that's a really fun touch on this background. And then I moved back up to the shutters here at the top of my card. And from there, I'm really going to work my way across. I have left in the majority of the coloring, but not all. It is a lot of repetition. I purposely did a lot of repetition because it's so much. I did not want to be going and trying to choose color, a million different colors. I really wanted it to have a cohesive look and not be random and all over the place. So the window casings are E55 and E57. Anything that's red, R37 and R39. Anything that's green is YG95 and 97. Anything that's blue, B34 and B37. So very, very consistent throughout the entire design. So if I skip over parts of the coloring, just know that I use those same colors throughout. A couple of other fun points of interest in this background. In the kind of, I call it the second row down, in the top, let's go to the top right and the second window down from that top corner, there's a cat sitting in the windowsill. I think that's so sweet. So for my cat lovers out there, I think that's really cute and fun. Of course, I already mentioned I love the clothesline of clothing across here, which I'm going to go ahead and touch on now and color that all in with some yellows and oranges and blues, red violets and reds. There are florals and greenery along a lot of the windows. Some of the window boxes, I added color to those with either reds or yellow reds. Others, I kept it brown and very neutral. I just tried to be very cohesive with this, but still add fun little touches here and there. The stairwell, that's a really fun one. I went a little darker here, kind of like I did with the closed shutters in the top center row that we did at the beginning, with some warm grays for the stairs, and then I went darker with the casing for the stairwell and darker for the inside of the stairwell. I colored it with some earth tones, but I'm going to do a little tracing with a warm gray marker, and I'm going to work on that a lot. Don't forget the vines. Anywhere on the building that there's vines, I just touched those with my green marker very, very briefly. No shading required. I just touched those with the tip of my marker to add that greenery to the building. The kind of sidewalk down there in front of the building, warm grays for this. I just touched that with my warm gray markers to differentiate the building from the sidewalk. And here is where I was talking about I got to these bottom two rows, and so I kind of did all the greenery, and then I went in and did window casings. I went in and did windows, all the things to finish this off. There is right there above the bottom right window, there's one that's got some beautiful little red roses along the border there, which I think is a nice little fun touch as well. So much to look at on this Venetian background cling stamp, you guys. I hope you're as excited about this one as I am, because I think the possibilities are just fantastic for this particular cling background, and especially when paired with that Peekaboo Fancy die. We're going to finish coloring all of the things in. And then my favorite tip for lining up your sentiments or whatever you want to put back behind the window, I did use a combination of this panel that I have colored and die cut and the die itself. The die itself is going to show you exactly where that die cut window is. And it works really great if you want to put that in your MISTI with your background paper that you're going to layer behind this panel right here. If you layer that die, you can very, very easily line up what you want to put back behind here. So here's all my little messages, and I did start with my panel. You could see just a second ago, I flipped all the windows up. They have a nice little score line. So I flipped all of those up, and now I'm going to simply go in and add lots of these greetings. I added tons of them, just kind of things I thought worked together, like we're using hey there, you rock, XOXO, hello, you're a great friend, peekaboo. I think the peekaboo is cute since we're using this peekaboo cover. Hugs, love you, you're the best, thanks for being you. We will be adding a sentiment to the inside of the card, which will kind of round that out. So this is more of a decorative element for this particular design, but it could also just be your sentiment if you wanted it to be. So I have lined up the majority of these. I'm going to go ahead and grab my die because I really think the die is easier in a lot of ways. I also opted, instead of white, because we have so many earth tones on our card, I opted to use some of the Hero Hues Antique Ivory cards, premium cardstock. That's what we're going to stamp our sentiments on. Originally, I started with the sentiments. I knew that there are more windows than sentiments I want to use, and I knew I was going to want to put something else behind some of the windows, but I want to start with my sentiments. So we're going to stamp any of the sentiments with black ink, Kept it basic, made it very easy to read. Stamped as many of these with one press as possible. I'm going to go in and add a few more. I'm using my panel this time. It gives me a better idea of how it's all going to look when I use the panel as opposed to the die. But you could use either one. And once I have my sentiments figured out and I have all the greetings I'm going to use here behind the windows, and pardon my head there in the way, I want to figure out something to use in the rest of the windows. My favorite, small little images. And for this one, I opted for hearts because I love hearts and I think that would be fun. I can color those to be the same colors that I used for the front of my card, meaning reds and blues and yellows and oranges and purples, or plum. So I'm going to take a heart from the main kit stamp set. It's this really pretty heart, and I'm going to stamp this in all of the rest of the openings. And I'm just flipping those windows open and stamping the heart. I used an acrylic block so I could do this quickly. I did this really quickly. And then I'm going to take my Copic markers and color those in, just like I did for anything on the front. This is going to add fun little pops of color so the recipient can just open up those windows and they get a little surprise behind each. So very, very quickly, we're going to add color to any of these hearts. The background looks kind of funny, I think, until you get the window on top of it. But I like to do any of my stamping and coloring on the flat panel, and then we will add our windows on top. A little tip for adding the window, which we're going to get to here in just a second. I don't like to lay the window directly on the background, meaning I don't want to put an adhesive right on the back of our window panel and pop it on here. I like to pop it up with foam adhesive. It is going to make opening those windows so much easier if you pop this up with a little foam adhesive. We get foam adhesive in this month's kit. You could trim it into thin strips. I'm actually using a thin strip adhesive that I have, and I'm framing this up very quickly. It's not super neat and tidy. No one's ever going to know. But I'm going around these windows, mostly around all sides of every window so that the panel is nice and flat and won't have any funny indentations anywhere. And we are simply applying that foam adhesive, and then we can adhere our background to a white top fold card base, which is what I did first, and then I took the window panel and added that on top of the background. I left in the foam adhesive part so you could really see that this is an over-the-top adhesive, but I think with the windows it makes opening them so much easier. It's a little extra work, but it's a step that's kind of important. And I'm peeling off all of that backing paper. I just kind of make a pile of it, and then I can scoop that into the trash can. And we are almost done with this card. Very beautiful. I think interactive cards are all the rage, and these little windows are such a fun surprise. So here's my white card base. We're just going to put some nice adhesive here on our panel, and then we're going to pop our windows over that, and then check out all those little windows. How fun is that, you guys? I just love this. So, so cute. I did finish my card by taking a sentiment from the main kit that says thank you, and I stamped that on the inside. And there's my finished card. Next, this card features only the main kit. So in the main kit, you're getting a 4x6 stamp set, you're getting all of these scene building dies, and you are getting cardstock. A lot of these cardstock colors are from the kit. Some of them are from my stash. These are all Hero Hues cardstock. So Hero Arts cardstock colors, and the cardstock colors I'm using are a lot of my very, very favorites. We are going to start, however, by building our background, which I just took some white cardstock I had, and I am creating a night sky background with the blue and pewter Glimmer metallic inks and black liquid watercolor. I'm watering these down and blending these colors to build a nighttime sky. When I need to create a nighttime sky, this is my favorite color combination. I think it creates amazing backgrounds, and then I think it's a little bit hard to see maybe on camera, but there's a metallic sheen to this. It's beautiful, and I think it just works so, so nice. When I looked at the scene building dies from the main kit, I knew I wanted to use all of them to build this beautiful scene. It's incredible and amazing. You guys know I love foam adhesive and love using it on my cards, and I think that that little touch of dimension helps build the scene beautifully. But we have to start with our background. I did go ahead and die cut my elements off camera. In addition to the dies from the main kit, I did grab a Hero Arts Circle Infinity die to use as my moon, and I die cut that from some mustard Hero Hues cardstock. I am adding detailing to my die cuts to add that depth and dimension and that nighttime feel so they're not quite so flat by using some charcoal ink applied with these ink blending brushes. It darkens up my die cuts. It just adds that nighttime feel, I think, to them. And as I mentioned, they don't look quite so quote-unquote flat. And I did this for everything but the water. I didn't really feel like the water needed that. For the water, I did something a little different. I die cut the water itself from Hero Hues Nautical cardstock, and I layered some of the Adriatic cardstock behind it. I just cut a 1-inch strip and layered it behind for that two-tone look. The buildings on the side are Hero Hues PLUM. The red buildings that'll be in the background are Hero Hues CRANBERRY. The bridge is CHESTNUT. And then I already mentioned that the moon is mustard. And then the gondola boat is in pitch black. And the clothesline of clothing is also in Adriatic, which is what I used for the layering along the water. I wanted my red border in the background. I wanted the windows. I didn't want to see through it to the sky, I guess. I wanted it to look like a nighttime scene where the windows are lit up. This poses a little bit of a challenge for the buildings on the side out of the PLUM cardstock. For the red building, I simply trimmed the mustard cardstock into strips, and I'm trimming it down and gluing it to the back of that red cardstock, or the cranberry cardstock die cut that's going to go on the very background of the card. The buildings are another thing altogether, and I'm going to show that here in a second, because part of the die cuts are the brickwork and just the texture of the building, and part of the die cuts are the windows. So we don't want to put mustard cardstock behind all of it because it's not all windows, and that's going to be way too much mustard and light shining through. We want to have that texture of the building. So there is my border with some of the windows. A lot of these actually you can't even see in the finished card. I probably wouldn't have had to add all of those. Once I got started, I just did it all. I layered the water die cut and then the layer behind it along the bottom edge of my background scene that we painted. We've added our red buildings. We're going to add our bridge. And then we're going to pop up the PLUM buildings on each side with foam adhesive. So directly adhered to the background of the card, we have the water die cut. We have the cranberry layer of buildings, and we have the chestnut layer with the bridge. The PLUM buildings, I opted to just take these and some CHESTNUT cardstock, and we will trim, I didn't even do it neat, some layers to go back behind those. Before I do that though, I do want to add some clouds to the night sky. I'm doing this with Hero Arts Unicorn ink. This is a white pigment ink. It shows up beautifully on our night sky. This cloud stamp, both sizes of cloud stamps are from the main kit stamp set. And we're going to stamp those all over. The sentiment on the moon, also from the main kit. And this is where I really don't want to back the whole thing with the mustard cardstock, but I also don't want to see through it. I think you lose the illusion of the buildings. So while I'm contemplating what color I want to mat these plum buildings on, I went ahead and glued my moon in place. I've got some bird images from the main kit stamp set. I'm going to stamp those. Here's my CHESTNUT cardstock. I literally laid that die cut on the edge and I simply took my scissors and trimmed around it. It is not neat. It is not tidy. No one is ever going to know, but I just kind of trimmed it so that it would fit underneath the edge of my die cut. And then I put glue on the back of the die cut and glued it to the CHESTNUT cardstock. And I know that I'm out of the camera range here. I apologize for that, you guys. I did not realize I was doing that. And then you can see the brown that's showing through, that shows the brickwork, that shows the texture of the building. But those windows look kind of dull and boring. That's okay. We're going to leave that there. We're going to do the other side. And then we are going to die cut those building pieces now from mustard cardstock. And we are going to take and inlay the window portions of the building into our buildings. So that's going to give those great little window details that show, you know, the light shining from these in this night scene card. A crystal katana is fantastic for picking these up and putting these in place. And we want to do both sides. The detail on these dies is just incredible. I absolutely love these. I think the possibilities are endless, especially paired with some of the other add-ons for this month. There are some really awesome options for building even more scenes. Now, once we have our windows, we really just have the clothesline of clothing, which for me was a last-minute decision. I wasn't sure if I was going to use it, but then I really felt like I needed that hanging in between. It completes the scene really beautifully. I die cut that from Adriatic cardstock. I did add the charcoal ink with the ink blending tools to that to darken it so it matches the rest of the scene. And we're going to glue that down between the buildings. I put foam adhesive behind some of the larger die cut clothing pieces to help hold it and pop it up a little bit better. And then we're gluing that from the windows. It looks like maybe I missed a little window piece, so I'm going to go ahead and add that in. Now, to make my windows really sparkle and shine, I want to take a little Nuvo Crystal Drops in White Blizzard and apply that to the windows. I've also applied, or adhered, pardon me, the gondola down in the bottom. This was die cut from pitch black cardstock and adhered with foam adhesive so that it lays nicely with the dimension of the buildings. The glittery look of the windows is really just going to help with that nighttime scene, light shining through the windows type of look. And then I did take a white pen and add some little dots to the sky just to make it look like stars and to fill that in a little bit more. This card was all about finishing details. With adding ink to our die cuts, with coloring the shimmery background, adding a glittery product to the windows of the buildings so that they look like light shining out, the clouds in the sky, the charcoal ink along the moon, all of those little touches like that. Last thing is we're going to glue our panel to a top fold card base, and that will finish up our beautiful Italian Venetian die cut scene card using the April 2019 My Monthly Hero main kit. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for these 2 cards featuring the Hero Arts My Monthly Hero April 2019 main kit and add-ons. The supplies I used to create my cards are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more videos featuring Hero Arts that you might be interested in. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll catch you next time.